Hello everyone, it's Mam-Mary and I hope you're having a wonderful day, and I love all of my readers and I hope you do too. Today we'll be reading the last part or second to last part of our Barefoot Book of Monsters. You afraid of monsters? If you're new here, please subscribe, like this video, share this video to your friends and family, and please comment down below. I wanted to give a shout out to my cousin Ali Sar, because he said that he's been watching these videos. Hi Ali, how are you? And I wanted to say hi to Prince and Uncle Sana and Auntie Mariam. And I wanted to tell you all hello, and I hope you guys are enjoying our videos. Sometime soon I'd love to do some videos for older kids, but for now we're only doing for the younger kids. I hope you're all having a wonderful day, and there are certain things that I must do as a reader. I need to read the book, and I have to tell you readers certain things that might be a little bit difficult to understand in the books. But there are certain things that I have to ask of you. I'd love you guys to please, of course, comment, subscribe, like, and share. But I'd love you guys to please, this is the most important parts of all of our videos, is practicing our virtues. Especially in this difficult time in the world, we really need virtues. So please practice the virtues we do every day, as well as listening to the story and just shouting out questions whenever I ask them to the screen. Okay, hello everyone. It's Mam-Mary again. Today we will be reading from the Barefoot Book of Monsters. The story is an Italian story called The Feathered Ogre. Are you afraid of ogre? Think of one ogre that you know. I know one. The movie is Shrek. Like Shrek and Donkey. Shrek was an ogre. If you met an ogre, would you be scared? I sure would. Long ago in a country far away, the king fell sick. Have you ever been sick? The royal doctor was summoned to his bedside. He made the king say, "Ah," as he counted the beats of the king's heart, and finally shook his head. "Only a magic feather from the ogre's back can cure you, sire." Sire is another word for king. All of the noble knights and ladies gasped in horror. The feathered ogre, who lived on an island far to the north, was feared throughout the kingdom. Are there any things that you're really afraid of? Interesting. I'm afraid of a lot of things, like bugs. Every year he would jump into a boat and come to the mainland. There he would capture 100 of the most tasty and tender young men and women and take them back to the island to put in his pantry. Last year he even snatched the king's eldest daughter, who had been visiting her aunt in the north. Many brave men had set out to the ogre's lair to put an end to his gruesome habit. Gruesome is another word for terrible. But none had ever returned. The noble ruler gave a huge sigh. Can you give a huge sigh? Let it be known that whoever brings a feather from the ogre's back will have the hand of my beautiful younger daughter in marriage, and half of my kingdom to call his or her own, the king commanded. But in his heart he despaired, because the journey was so frightening, and whether they were old or young, or brave or cowardly, all the people agreed with their king. Plucking a feather right from the evil ogre's back was utterly impossible. No one would risk being the next tasty morsel to be put in the ogre's pantry. Morsel is another word for bite or food or snack. What is your favorite food? I don't really have a favorite food. I like all foods, except nuts. No one, well, perhaps there was one person who was brave enough to go. Pirlo, the youngest of the king's gardeners, had had enough of weeding the royal potato patch and picking fat caterpillars off the clingy cabbages. When he heard about the reward, a dreamy look came into his eyes. A wild adventure, half a kingdom. The only bad part was having to marry the younger princess, who always made faces at him from the palace windows. Still, Pirlo threw down his spade and found himself a stout staff and walked off to the north. Can you make a funny face like this? Okay, let's start. Pirlo traveled for many days over the hill and dale. He walked through lush valleys where the grass was soft as silk and as green as a frog. He walked over rocky cliffs where the rough stones were lumpy and twisted as a witch's nose. What do you think a witch's nose looks like? Finally, he reached the shore at the end of the kingdom. There before him lay the sea, and over the sea laid the feathered ogre's island. As he stood there wondering to himself how he might get across, Pirlo heard the splash of oars and a person sighing long, sad sighs. Can you let out a long, sad sigh? Let's try. An ancient wooden boat was drifting towards him over the waves. In the boat sat the oldest man that Pirlo had ever seen. Who's the oldest person you've ever seen or known? Can you think about them? His face was wrinkled as a raisin, and the tip of his long white beard trailed over the side of the boat into the salty water. "Good day, ferryman," called Pirlo cheerily as the boat reached the shore. "Will you row me over to the feathered ogre's island?" What do you think the old man will say? The ferryman looked at Pirlo with his tired eyes. When he spoke, his voice was the weariest sound in the world. "Traveler, I have rowed from shore to shore for 1,000 years. I am worn to the bone, but the feathered ogre has placed an enchantment on me, and I cannot get out of the boat. It doesn't matter to me, sir, whether there is a passenger or not." That's so sad. What do you think Pirlo will do about it? What would you do about it if you saw this man? Pirlo jumped into the little boat, shaking his head at the ferryman's gloomy tale. Gloomy is another word for sad. When they reached the island, the ferryman pointed to the huge wooden door set on the cliff nearby. Not knowing what else to do, Pirlo took a deep breath and striding across the sand, he banged on the door with his staff. Do you have a staff or a stick that you like to play with or carry around? My little brother does. After a while, the door creaked slowly open. Pirlo raised the stout staff again, ready to give the ogre a bop on the nose. But instead of an ugly monster, a beautiful girl with bright blue eyes stood behind the door. She looked at Pirlo with a puzzled frown. "You're not the feathered ogre," he said. "Who are you, and why are you here?" Puzzled is another word for confused. It's also the name of one of my poems. Can you give like a puzzled frown? Like, When Pirlo had explained everything to the girl, she said in surprise, Why, the king is my father. That wicked old ogre captured me last year when I was visiting my auntie. He didn't eat me because I offered to keep his house spick and span for him. Spick and span meaning clean. I helped the other people to escape from his pantry and fed the ogre mutton instead. Mutton is another word for sheep, lamb, or goat. Now I want to go home too. If you help me find the way, I'll get a feather for you. Of course, Pirlo agreed. What would you do? Wouldn't you agree? Come into the kitchen and hide under the table, said the princess. The ogre will be back soon. Would you be afraid if you were hiding under a feathered ogre's table? No sooner had Pirlo dived under the table than the door burst open, and in strode the feathered ogre. His horrible scowling face was scrunched as rotten cabbage. Scowl means like an angry face. Can you make an angry scrunch face? Where's my tea? He shouted. Here it is, ogre dear, said the princess. You munched the last man yesterday, so it's just delicious dumplings tonight. Do you like dumplings? I love dumplings. My grandmother made the best dumplings. Bah! He roared, stuffing all of the dumplings into his mouth at once. Tomorrow I will catch more tasty human beings for my supper. So, basically, did you see what he did there? He didn't say human beings, he said human beings. Do you know what the difference is? Human being is talking about a person, but you obviously know what beans are. So he sees people just as food. And then the feathered ogre wiped his chin on one feathery arm and started to snigger. Harg, harg, harg. Every time I sit in the boat with that old ferryman, I split my sides. If only he knew. And he wiped a tear of laughter from his eye. If only he knew. What, ogre dear? Asked the princess. If only he knew how easy it was for him to escape from my magic. If he gave his passengers the oars to hold and jumped out quick sticks from the boat, he would be as free as the air. The passenger would be stuck in his place instead, rowing from shore to shore until doomsday. Harg, harg, harg. This ogre does not seem very nice, and he does not have very good table manners. Do you know how it's a polite way to eat at a table? You shouldn't stuff all of the food in your mouth at once or wipe your hands on your arms. You should try and use a tissue or at least wash your face. Or instead, eat slowly. And you should definitely not laugh at people's expense. Under the table, Pirlo was listening carefully. Ogre dear, you look tired, murmured the princess thoughtfully. Why don't you have a little nap? Said the feathered ogre with a great yawn. Putting his head down on the table. Good idea. I'm tired out of ogring all day. The girl stroked the ogre's feather and sang to him until he fell into a deep sleep. As soon as he began to snore, she quickly pulled a magic feather from his back and threw it under the table to Pirlo. Ow! Howled the ogre, waking up. I've been stung! There, ogre dear, the princess soothed. It was just a little spark from the fire that singed one of your pretty little feathers. Go back to sleep. Said the ogre, putting his head on the table. Soon he was snoring again. Quick, whispered the princess to Pirlo. Now's our chance. Run! Hand in hand, the pair ran across the cave. They opened the huge door and rushed outside into the daylight. But the door slammed shut with a loud bang, and as they ran toward the ferryman's boat, they heard the ogre wake up with a roar of rage. Rage is another word for angry. Have you ever been so angry that you just screamed? "Row, ferryman, row!" cried Pirlo as they hurled themselves into the boat. Behind them, the door of the cave burst open and out charged the ogre. "Come back!" he bellowed, hopping up and down on the sand. But the ferryman rowed as if the sea were on fire, and Pirlo and the princess jumped out, safe at the other side. They told the ferryman how to escape from his curse, and the first smile in 1,000 years spread slowly across his face. Wasn't that nice of him? Do you remember how the ferryman can break his curse? That's right. He has to give his oars to the next passenger, and they'll be stuck until the end of time. Doesn't that sound like a really long time? Then Pirlo and the princess ran homeward, clutching the precious feather. Over the hill and dale they dashed until finally they reached the palace. The magic feather cured the king's illness in a second. And he was so happy to see his elder daughter again that he danced a jig around the throne room. Have you ever been so happy that you danced around? He granted Pirlo half of his kingdom and let him marry the elder daughter instead of the younger one. So everyone was happy. Do you think the princess wanted to marry Pirlo? They seem to be good friends, but I think she should be able to decide. Everyone except for the wicked feathered ogre. For as Pirlo and the princess ran home, the ferryman rowed back to the island where the monster leaped into the boat with a curse and a roar. Do you know anyone who curses a lot? Or have you ever cursed? It's not really polite. "I'll catch that nasty pair. See if I don't," he shouted. "Row faster!" The ogre was so angry that he didn't notice that the ferryman was smiling as he said, "Why don't you take the oars? A mighty ogre like you could row much faster than an old man like me." Uh-oh. Not realizing for a moment that the ferryman knew the secret, the ogre grabbed the oars and sent the boat skimming over the waves like a bird. Before he could get out of the other side, the ferryman jumped out of the boat into the shallow water. "Ha ha!" he laughed, clicking his heels in the air with delight. "I'm free as the air. So now, until the ogre gives the oars to someone else, and unless he does that, he'll be stuck there for forever." And he ran away over the pebbly beach. The feathered ogre gave such a howl of horror that Pirlo and the princess heard it, far away in the palace. For now, the ogre was cursed to row the boat from shore to shore until doomsday. As far as I know, he's still rowing. And that is the end of our story. I hope you enjoyed the story, and I hope you learned to be as kind as possible. We'll move on to our virtue soon, but again, I'd love to ask you all to please like this video, subscribe, share the video, and comment down below so we'll be able to give you a shout out like we did for Ali today. I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I hope you're never as mean as the ogre and that you're as smart as the princess and Pirlo. Now we're at the virtues part of our video, and I hope you enjoyed the story about the featherless ogre and the princess and Pirlo and the king and everyone in the story and the ferryman. I hope you enjoyed our story, and I hope you had a wonderful time listening to it. Now it's time for one of the most important, if not the most important parts of our videos, the virtues portion. So I would love for you all to try to practice this as much as you can in your life. Today's virtue is moderation. I call that true piety, where one is moderate in eating and resting and in sport, measure in wish and act. This is a quotation from a holy book. Moderation is creating balance in your life. It is having enough, not too much or not too little. Moderation is stopping before going overboard. It is using self-discipline to keep from overdoing. Moderation is what keeps us from being blown out into the winds of our desires. So in the story, the ogre was not very moderate when it came to eating. He would eat all of the food at once, and that's not very polite. And you need to have a balance, because even too much of a good thing is not really good. Signs of success. The practice of moderation. This is what someone says when they use moderation. I know what I need and get enough. No more, no less. I use self-discipline to stop myself from overdoing. I set boundaries to protect my time and my health. I am content with enough. Moderation keeps my life in balance. So that is the end of our story today. I hope you all enjoyed it, and I hope you have a wonderful day. Again, please subscribe, share, and comment down below so then we can give you a shout out, and please subscribe to the channel. I hope you have a wonderful day, and I hope you like the video. Thank you so much. Goodbye.